Ladies and gentlemen, there are moments in life when we feel the world shifting beneath our feet, a quiet nudge, a subtle signal that something is changing, and if we don't adapt, we'll be left behind. 2026 isn't just another year on the calendar, it's a line in the sand. A milestone for those willing to rise, evolve, and redefine what's possible. What you do between now and then will either shape your future or leave you stuck in the past. Here are 5 things you must do before 2026. But before we begin, let's get something straight. These aren't to-do list items. They're transformations. And there's a 6th point that ties it all together. Look around your life, not just at where you're going, but who's walking with you. Because whether you realize it or not, your circle is either your anchor or your engine. They're either keeping you grounded in mediocrity or pushing you to rise into the version of yourself you haven't even met yet. And too often, we underestimate just how powerful their influence really is. Every word they say, every value they hold, every belief they reinforce, these things seep into your mind. And eventually, they start to sound like your own voice. You don't need to be surrounded by a crowd to feel supported. You need the right voices in your corner. Voices that speak truth even when it's uncomfortable. Voices that won't let you settle for average. Think about the people you interact with most. Do they celebrate your growth, or do they only clap when you shrink to fit their comfort zone? Do they challenge your thinking, or do they echo your limitation? Because here's the raw truth. Comfort zones don't grow people. They keep them safe, small, and stuck. And sometimes the people we love the most are the ones keeping us in that bubble, out of love, out of fear, out of habit. But love without challenge isn't love that leads you forward, it's love that holds you back. There's a man I once met whose life took a complete 180, not because of a new job or a lucky break, but because of a decision. He told me he stopped drinking every weekend. That wasn't the transformative part. What changed his life was the group he left behind when he made that decision. He said, it wasn't the alcohol, it was who I stopped drinking with. That stuck with me, because sometimes the shift isn't about what you're doing, it's about who you're doing it with. The behavior may be the symptom, but the environment is the root. There's science behind this too. Behavioral psychology tells us we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Their mindset becomes your mindset. Their habits shape yours. Their emotional patterns, their ambitions, their fears, you begin to mirror them without even realizing it. It's called emotional contagion. Just like laughter spreads, so does doubt, so does cynicism, so does apathy. If you surround yourself with people who always look for reasons something won't work, you'll start doing the same, not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans adapt to survive, especially within groups. But what if we turn that around? What if you chose to surround yourself with people who stretch your thinking? People who speak about dreams like they're plans. People who aren't afraid to say you're playing small when they know you're capable of more. People who lead with integrity, who challenge your ego, who remind you that your excuses may feel valid, but they're still excuses. These aren't always the easiest people to be around, but they're the people who will change your life. It takes courage to audit your circle, because sometimes it means stepping away from relationships that have years of history but zero growth. It means walking away from people who were once safe but now stagnant. And it means opening yourself up to new relationships that might intimidate you because they operate at a higher standard, but growth is uncomfortable. And if everyone around you is comfortable with your comfort, that should concern you. The most dangerous thing isn't criticism, it's quiet agreement with your limitation. And yet we often hang on, we justify, we say, but they've been there for me, sure, but being there for you doesn't mean they're good for you. Loyalty is beautiful, but only when it's mutual and when it fuels progress. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for them is to create space. Because staying in a circle that no longer aligns with your values, your goals, or your future isn't loyalty. It's self-sabotage dressed as sentimentality. Before 2026 arrives, take the time to reflect on who's sitting at your table, who has access to your energy, who gets to speak into your life. Not everyone deserves a front row seat. Some people are better loved from a distance. Some conversations are better left unspoken, and some seasons are meant to end, not because you're heartless, but because you're growing. and growth often requires pruning. But when you're intentional about who surrounds you, everything changes. Your thinking sharpens, your belief expands, your actions align. Suddenly, you're no longer just surviving the day, you're designing it. You're no longer defaulting to what's easy, you're choosing what's necessary. And that's the shift that creates real momentum, because transformation doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in alignment with people who reflect the future you want, not the past you're trying to outgrow. Find the ones who push you to rise, the ones who ask hard questions, not because they doubt you, but because they believe in your potential, the ones who are building something with their own lives and inspire you to do the same, the ones who celebrate your wins and call you out when you're coasting, because your circle will either dilute your fire or fuel it. Choose the ones who fan the flames. I've seen lives change not by a grand event, but by small shifts in alignment, a different mentor, a new friend, a bold conversation, a brave goodbye. Don't underestimate the power of choosing wisely, because who you surround yourself with today determines who you become tomorrow. And if 2026 is going to be your breakthrough year, it starts now with the people you let walk beside you. Audit your circle, not with judgment, but with clarity. Not with bitterness, but with purpose. Because your future is worth protecting. Your growth is worth prioritizing. And the person you're becoming, they need people who see it, believe it, and speak to it, especially on the days when you forget it yourself. Surround yourself with those who remind you of your greatness, and then become that kind of person for someone else. Because rising together is the only way we truly rise at all. The world is moving faster than most of us ever imagined. It's not just evolving, it's transforming at a pace that leaves even the most adaptive minds scrambling to keep up. In the middle of this whirlwind, we face a choice, a defining one. We can fear the change, resist it, pretend it won't touch our lives. Or we can rise to meet it by becoming more of what machines can never be: human. Artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning. These aren't the enemies. They're simply mirrors, reflecting back to us the parts of our work, our routines, and even our thinking that have become mechanical. They strip away what's replicable, what's predictable, and in doing so, they shine a spotlight on what remains: the deeply human, the emotional, the intuitive, the ethical, the creative. This isn't about learning how to outcode a machine. It's about learning how to become the kind of person who can never be replaced by one. The future doesn't belong to the most efficient. It belongs to the most empathetic, the most imaginative, the most resilient, the most human. That's why before 2026, each of us must make a commitment, not just to learn something new, but to learn something timeless, something that will matter even more tomorrow than it does today, something machines will never be able to mimic. Skills like storytelling, where you don't just share information, you connect hearts. Like empathy, where you don't just hear someone's words, you feel their world. Like critical thinking, where you don't just memorize facts, you question what's missing. And leadership, not the kind that shouts the loudest, but the kind that listens with humility and moves with purpose. Think of the last time you were truly moved. A moment when someone made you feel seen. When a story gave you goosebumps. When a conversation helped you shift your perspective. None of those moments were driven by data. They were driven by depth. Of emotion, of connection, of meaning. That's the skill set the future demands. And it can't be taught by code. It must be cultivated through intention. The World Economic Forum has projected that by 2027, nearly half of the skills we use in the workplace today will be obsolete, 44% of them gone or transformed. And the scary part, most people aren't preparing. They're waiting, hoping things will slow down. They won't, and that's the point. The change isn't coming, it's already here. You walk into stores with self-checkout lanes and AI assistants. You read articles written by algorithms. You interact with customer service bots. If your value is rooted in repetition or routine, you're standing on thin ice. But if your value comes from insight, from care, from original thought, you're building a bridge to the future. Let me tell you a story. There was once a man who lost his job after 15 years of doing the same thing. He had perfected a set of skills that were now done better and faster by software. For months, he was angry, bitter. He blamed the world. He blamed the system. And then one day, he sat down with his daughter. She was struggling in school, anxious about a presentation. He listened, really listened. He helped her craft her story, taught her how to speak, not just to inform, but to inspire. When she delivered her presentation, her teacher pulled her aside and said, "You changed the way I saw this topic." That man realized he had something inside him that couldn't be automated: wisdom, compassion, teaching. And from that moment on, he stopped chasing jobs and started creating value. He became a coach, a speaker, a mentor. He didn't just adapt, he evolved, and that made all the difference. The most valuable skill you can learn now isn't how to compete with technology, it's how to complement it, to do what machines can't. Machines can process, but they can't feel. They can detect patterns, but they can't dream. They can solve equations, but they can't lead people through fear or inspire them into courage. So if you're wondering what to do next, don't just look for what's hot on the market. Look inward. Ask yourself, what part of me can never be replicated? Is it your ability to unite people, to calm chaos, to tell the kind of story that makes someone stop scrolling and start feeling? You are not a job description. You are not a task list. You are not a title. You are a human being with a mind that thinks, a heart that feels, and a spirit that adapts. Don't underestimate that. Don't abandon that in the pursuit of what seems marketable, because while others may chase trends, you can build tools. While others may follow the wave, you can become the current. Master the skills that make you irreplaceable, not just for the sake of your job, but for the sake of your legacy. Be the person who knows how to lead in uncertainty, who speaks when others are silent, who connects when others retreat. Because the future doesn't just need smart people, it needs wise ones, brave ones. You have 3 years, not to wait, not to watch, but to become. Make the commitment now, not because you're afraid of being left behind, but because you're ready to move ahead on your terms, with your truth, armed with the skills that machines can never own. That's the path forward. Not safety, not certainty, but strength. The kind that no algorithm can replicate. The kind that comes from choosing growth before the world demands it of you. Clarity is power. Without it, we wander through life reacting instead of responding, drifting instead of deciding, compromising instead of committing. When we lack clarity, especially about what we stand for, we become vulnerable to everything. Every request, every opportunity, every demand on our time and energy pulls us in directions that may look promising, but lead nowhere meaningful. Before 2026, it's not just helpful, it's necessary to define your non-negotiables. These are not fancy words you jot down in a journal once and forget. Your non-negotiables are the immovable truths you live by. They are the lines you draw in the sand, not out of arrogance, but out of alignment. Because without lines, without standards, without unwavering values, the world will define them for you. And the world is noisy. It's persuasive. It sells shortcuts, justifications, and distractions disguised as opportunities. We admire people who stand for something, but often we forget that standing for something means being willing to stand alone, at least for a while. I once met a woman who received a $200,000 0-cents promotion offer. That kind of offer changes lives. It pays off mortgages, opens doors, creates a sense of security. But she said no. Not because she wasn't qualified, not because she was afraid, but because the role demanded 70-hour weeks, constant travel, and missing the very moments with her children she held sacred. She told me, I didn't have kids to watch someone else raise them. It wasn't a rejection of ambition, it was the fullest expression of it. She knew who she was, she knew what mattered more than money, more than prestige, more than a line on a resume. That wasn't weakness, that was strength, sharpened by clarity. Every one of us has a price if we haven't defined our principles. We all say we value honesty, but will we speak up when the truth costs us approval? We say we value health, but do we prioritize sleep and nourishment when stress mounts? We say we value integrity, but do we still choose it when it's inconvenient, when no one's watching, when the stakes are high? Your non-negotiables don't make life easier, they make it meaningful. They challenge you to show up when quitting would be simpler. They anchor you when storms hit, and storms will hit. People will misunderstand your boundaries, some will mock your convictions, others will try to guilt you, manipulate you, push you to bend. But here's the secret. What they're really testing isn't your limits, it's your clarity. A leader once told me that every compromise he made in his early career was a trade for short-term applause at the cost of long-term peace. He said yes when he should have said no. He tolerated toxic environments because he feared being labeled difficult. He stayed silent when he knew he should have spoken up. And eventually, he found himself climbing a ladder he didn't want, arriving at a destination he never chose. He burned out, not because he lacked drive, but because he lacked definition. He had never sat down and asked himself, what are the values I refuse to betray no matter what? When he finally did, he rebuilt his life and business around them. Smaller team, smaller office, fewer clients, but more impact, more freedom, more fulfillment, because he wasn't trying to be everything to everyone anymore. He was trying to be himself. There's power in knowing what you'll walk away from, even when walking away costs you. Maybe it's a job that doesn't respect your time. Maybe it's a relationship that belittles your dreams. Maybe it's a lifestyle that looks successful but feels suffocating. Whatever it is, clarity gives you the courage to say, this isn't for me. Not because I'm better, but because I'm clear. We often think resilience comes from pushing through everything, but sometimes resilience comes from walking away with your values intact. That's the kind of strength that doesn't shout but leaves echoes. It's the kind that teaches your children what self-worth looks like. It's the kind that rewrites legacies, not with grand gestures, but with consistent integrity. If you're not clear on your non-negotiables, the world will hand you its agenda. It will celebrate hustle over health, popularity over purpose, productivity over presence. And one day you'll look up and wonder how you got so far from yourself. But if you pause now, if you take the time to define what truly matters, you begin to build a life where decisions feel aligned, not forced, where opportunities aren't just accepted but filtered, where success isn't measured by what you gain, but by what you refuse to lose. Ask yourself the hard questions. What do I protect at all costs? What principles do I hold, even when holding them isolates me? What would I walk away from, even if it made others uncomfortable? These are not questions for the faint of heart. They are questions for the brave, for the ones who know that success without soul is hollow, that comfort without conviction is cheap, that ease is not the same as peace. There will be moments when you'll be tested. You'll be offered something that looks too good to pass up, but it comes at the price of your peace. You'll be tempted to justify, to bend just this once, to tell yourself you'll make it right later. That's the fork in the road. That's when your non-negotiables aren't words, they're actions, they're decisions, they're sacrifices. And in those moments, when you choose alignment over applause, principle over popularity, truth over convenience, you don't just change your own life, you give others permission to do the same. You become the example someone else points to when they say, if they can live that boldly, maybe I can too. So before 2026 arrives, define what matters so clearly that nothing can distract you from it. Write it down, live it out, guard it fiercely, because when you know what you stand for, you'll never again fear what you might fall for. You'll move with purpose, you'll lead with integrity, you'll sleep with peace, and you'll look back not with regret, but with pride. Not for what you built, but for what you refused to trade to build it. We live in a culture that glorifies grind, hustle, and productivity at all costs. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor and dismiss rest as weakness. But in chasing success, many of us forget that the foundation of everything we build, our ideas, relationships, and dreams, is our health. Without it, all the ambition in the world crumbles like sand underfoot. We push through fatigue with caffeine, silence stress with distractions, and medicate symptoms instead of addressing root causes. And yet, we're surprised when burnout arrives, when anxiety spikes, when disease creeps in silently. Here's the truth most of us don't want to admit. Your health is the most non-negotiable asset you'll ever own. And I'm not just talking about physical health, though that's critical. I'm talking about the total ecosystem of your well-being, mental, emotional, physical, and even spiritual. This isn't about six-pack abs or posting smoothie bowls on Instagram. This is about showing up for life with clarity, strength, and intention. It's about having the energy to play with your kids, the patience to lead with empathy, the mental sharpness to innovate, and the emotional stability to navigate hard seasons without collapsing. Yet we treat health reactively. We wait until something breaks before we pay attention. We wait for the diagnosis, the panic attack, the burnout, the divorce, the heart scare. And only then, once our world is shaken, do we ask what happened. What happened is that we ignored the warning signs. We lived like our bodies were indestructible, like our minds were machines. We treated health like a background character in the story of our lives, not realizing it was the stage the whole story stands on. Think of the most pivotal moments in your life. The opportunities that asked for your full presence, the challenges that demanded your resilience, the people who needed your patience and empathy. Every one of those moments required something more than intelligence or ambition. They required you to feel good. They required strength, clarity, stamina, presence. And all of that comes from your health. The challenge is most people don't even realize how bad they feel until they start feeling better. They think foggy focus is normal. They assume their irritability is just part of aging. They believe exhaustion is simply the cost of doing great things. But what if we flipped that? What if we stopped waiting for a breakdown to finally choose vitality? So before 2026 arrives, make a radical commitment to your health. Not a New Year's resolution, not a 30-day cleanse, a relationship. Move your body daily, not as punishment for what you ate, but as a celebration of what your body can do. Walk, stretch, lift, dance. Just move. You don't need a gym membership or fancy gear. You need to make movement as regular as brushing your teeth. Your body isn't a machine, it's a messenger. And movement is how you say thank you for carrying you through every chapter of your life. Eat foods that love you back. That's right, not just the ones you love. There's a difference. You might love a sugar high, but your body crashes for hours after. You might crave processed snacks, but they steal your focus and mood. Choose foods that make you feel strong, light, and steady, not bloated, drained, and dull. This isn't about dieting. It's about fueling your body for the life you want to live. Food is information. It tells your body how to function. Make sure the message is a good one. Sleep like it's sacred, because it is. It's where your brain files memories, where your body repairs cells, where your soul resets. Stop wearing late nights like a medal. Stop sacrificing sleep in the name of productivity. You're not gaining time. You're stealing clarity from tomorrow. Protect your sleep like you protect your dreams, because without it, your dreams stay just that, dreams. Get the blood work done. Stop guessing. Stop Googling symptoms and hoping for the best. Get the data, know your numbers, know your risks. Knowledge is power, and it's a power most people don't use. Preventative health isn't sexy, but it saves lives. Early detection isn't just smart, it's responsible. You get annual reviews for your job, oil changes for your car, tune-ups for your tech. Why not for the only body you'll ever live in? And yes, go to therapy if you need to, which, let's be honest, most of us do. Life is heavy. Grief, trauma, stress, insecurity. They don't just vanish. They root themselves in the corners of our minds and leak into our relationships, decisions, and self-worth. Therapy isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's self-leadership. Just as you wouldn't ignore a broken bone, don't ignore a breaking heart or an overburdened mind. You don't need to be in crisis to get support. You just need to value yourself enough to heal, grow, and evolve. When you prioritize your health, everything else shifts. Confidence rises, decisions sharpen, creativity flourishes. You start waking up with energy instead of dragging yourself into the day. You begin to trust your body instead of fighting it. You stop reacting to life and start responding. Health isn't just about living longer, it's about living better. It's about being fully present for the moments that matter most. It's about creating a life that doesn't just look good, but feels good too. And here's what's most inspiring. Health is one of the few things we have real control over. In a world that feels chaotic and uncertain, where markets shift and headlines overwhelm, your health is yours. The choices you make every day to walk instead of scroll, to hydrate instead of hustle, to pause instead of panic, they add up. They form the compound interest of vitality. You may not see the payoff today, but your future self, they'll thank you. They'll look back and say that's when everything changed. Because the future doesn't belong to those who grind the hardest. It belongs to those who have the strength to show up for it. And showing up requires stamina. It requires resilience. It requires a foundation built not on burnout, but on balance. Not on sacrifice, but on sustainability. So as you look ahead, at the career you want to build, the family you want to nurture, the dreams you want to chase, ask yourself, do I have the health to hold it all? And if not, what's one small choice I can make today to begin? Your future isn't waiting for perfection, it's waiting for intention. Make the choice, honor the vessel, protect the platform. Because your story deserves to be told in full color, not through the haze of fatigue, pain, or regret. Start now. Get in ridiculously good health, not because you have to, but because you can. Forgiveness is one of those words we like in theory, but struggle with in reality. We say we believe in it, we teach it to our children, we even pray for it. But when it comes time to actually do it, to extend it, to receive it, or to give it to ourselves, it becomes one of the hardest, most courageous acts we'll ever undertake. And yet, there is nothing more freeing, more transformative, more powerful than forgiveness. Unforgiveness is a prison, but not a typical one. It's a prison with no bars, no guards, and no locked door. It's a prison where you're holding the key the entire time, and still we sit in it, day after day. We carry anger like armor, thinking it protects us. We carry guilt like punishment, thinking it makes us righteous. We rehearse past wounds like they're part of our identity. But here's the truth. Your pain may explain you, but it doesn't define you. It may have shaped you, but it doesn't own you. And when we don't forgive, we give that pain more power than it ever deserved. I once sat with a man, highly intelligent, professionally successful, admired by his peers, yet something always seemed to weigh him down. For 14 years, he had carried guilt over a decision he made in his personal life, a choice he regretted, a moment that haunted him. And in all that time, he never said the words out loud, never looked at himself in the mirror and said, I forgive you. One day, he did. Not as part of some elaborate ritual, not in a therapy room, just a quiet conversation with himself, honest, raw, real. The next morning, he walked in like a new man, not because his past changed, but because his relationship to it did. He was lighter, not just emotionally, but in how he carried himself, how he spoke, how he looked people in the eye. You could feel it. He wasn't dragging his story anymore. He was finally writing a new one. That's the power of forgiveness. And here's the part no one tells you. It's not about them. Forgiveness isn't about validating what happened. It's not about saying it was okay or that it didn't hurt or that you weren't wronged. It's about refusing to let that moment have the final say in your story. It's about reclaiming your power. You don't forgive because they earned it. You forgive because you're tired of holding on to something that's poisoning you. Imagine carrying a suitcase filled with rocks, and everywhere you go, you drag it behind you, into your relationships, into your work, into your future. You pretend it's not heavy, but your back hurts. You try to move forward, but your pace is slow. People ask why you look so tired. And eventually you get so used to it that you forget it's there. You just assume that's how life is supposed to feel. But it's not. Life isn't meant to be carried like a burden. You were built to run, to fly, to stretch, to grow. But you can't do that if your hands are full of old pain. Forgiveness is letting go of the rocks, one by one, not all at once, not perfectly, just honestly. One memory at a time, one name at a time, one wound at a time, until your hands are finally empty and your arms are finally free. But let's not stop there, because some of the hardest forgiveness isn't for what they did. It's for what you did or didn't do. It's the shame we hide, the opportunities we missed, the version of ourselves we still judge. And this kind of forgiveness, the internal kind, is often the most transformative, because when we forgive ourselves, we stop running from the mirror. We start showing up fully, authentically, unapologetically. We stop performing and start living. It's easy to think, I'll forgive once they apologize, or I'll move on when the pain goes away. But healing isn't passive. You don't wait your way into freedom. You choose it, you create it, you fight for it. Forgiveness is the fight. It's not weakness, it's not passivity. It's the strongest thing you can do to say, I am done letting this define me. I'm done reliving that scene. I'm done carrying someone else's mistake on my shoulders. You may not get an apology, you may never get the closure you think you need, but what if you don't need it? What if closure isn't something you receive, it's something you create? What if peace isn't found in the past, it's made in the present? We often confuse forgiveness with forgetting, but they're not the same. Forgiving doesn't erase the lesson. It doesn't mean you invite the person back into your life. It just means you no longer give them power over your peace. You no longer let the moment be your identity. You acknowledge it, you learn from it, and you choose to move forward, stronger, not bitter. This is what we must do before 2026, not because the calendar demands it, but because your future does, because the life waiting for you on the other side of forgiveness is bigger, brighter, and more meaningful than you can imagine. But you can't reach it while standing in the past. You can't evolve if you're anchored to anger. You can't be fully present if part of your heart is still stuck in a moment you never let go of. And it's not just about healing you, it's about who you become when you do. The parent who finally loves without fear, the partner who listens without judgment, the leader who leads with empathy, the creator who creates with courage. That version of you is already inside. You just need to clear the debris so it can come through. The next level of your life doesn't start with more goals or more hustle. It starts with more healing. It begins where you decide to set the weight down. And that decision, as simple and profound as it is, changes everything. Forgive, not because it erases the past, but because it unlocks the future. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. Because freedom is found not in holding on, but in letting go. That waiting for permission, that might just be the single most liberating sentence you ever internalize. And yet it's the one we struggle with the most. Because from the time we were children, we were taught to raise our hands, wait our turn, ask for approval. Somewhere along the way, we built a belief that big moves require big endorsements, that living out loud required validation, that stepping into our full potential needed some kind of cosmic green light. But life doesn't hand out whole passes for courage. It doesn't mail you an invitation to begin. And if you spend your whole life standing in line, waiting for someone to notice your potential, to wave you forward, to whisper, "You're ready," you'll never take the first step. Because the truth is, no one can give you what you already possess. Before 2026 arrives, you must realize something essential. There is no committee meeting somewhere deciding your worth. No one is going to call you and say, "Today's the day you're finally allowed to be bold." You are the only one who can grant yourself the permission to start. Start messy, start scared, start small. But just start. I once met a man who spent 14 years dreaming of opening a bakery. 14 years collecting recipes, drawing logos, imagining his store layout. But he was waiting for more savings, for better timing, for someone to say, "Go for it." He came to a realization one morning while scrolling through social media. Someone had opened a bakery down the street with the exact same name he once dreamed of. Different person, same dream, same idea, but one of them acted and one didn't. Here's the hard truth. When you wait, someone else will act. When you hesitate, someone else will leap. The people who will thrive in 2026 aren't necessarily the most talented, the most connected, or the most prepared. They're the ones moving, the ones willing to build the bridge while walking on it, the ones who stopped rehearsing and started doing. We keep thinking clarity comes before courage, but it doesn't. Clarity comes from movement. You don't find your voice before you speak, you find it by speaking. You don't become a leader by reading leadership books. You become a leader the moment you make a choice to lead without a title. You don't write the perfect first chapter and then become a writer. You become a writer the moment you type the first word. The first step isn't supposed to be flawless. It's supposed to be taken. So what are you waiting for, really? Ask yourself, are you waiting for a degree? For someone to notice your potential? For your family's approval? For a sign from the universe? What if the only sign you need is the ache in your soul that won't go away? The quiet voice that keeps whispering, "There's more." That's not just a daydream, that's direction. I once spoke with a woman who told me she had wanted to go back to school for over a decade, but kept saying, "It's too late." She was 42. I asked her how old she'd be in 4 years if she didn't go. 46, she said. "Exactly," I replied. "You'll be 46 either way. The only question is whether you'll be 46 with a degree or still wishing you'd started." She applied the next day. There is no such thing as the perfect moment. There is only now. The stars will never fully align. The fear will never fully disappear. The voice of doubt won't go away. It'll just grow quieter the more you prove it wrong. And make no mistake, taking action will feel terrifying. It will feel clumsy, lonely, chaotic, but it will also feel alive. There is no greater high than doing the thing you once believed was out of reach. Some of the most impactful movements in history weren't started by people who were ready. They were started by people who were tired of waiting for society to evolve, tired of waiting for doors to open. So they kicked the door down. They didn't wait to be qualified. They became qualified by showing up again and again and again. Passion is loud, but conviction walks into a room and doesn't ask for applause. It gets to work. Here's something powerful to remember. Nobody who's doing more than you will ever judge you for trying. The ones who mock, doubt, or criticize, they're still sitting on the sidelines waiting for their moment. Don't let their hesitation become your hesitation. Your life isn't meant to be a performance you perfect in private. It's meant to be a bold experiment in becoming. So run the test, launch the project, make the call, move to the city, say I love you, say I'm sorry, say yes, say no. Whatever your next chapter demands, answer it. The people who are building their own constellations are doing so because they realize something simple. The stars don't need to be in the right place. They just need to be seen from the right perspective. When you move, the entire sky shifts. What once felt impossible becomes inevitable. What once felt distant becomes close. What once felt too hard becomes habit. You don't need more time, more money, or more approval. You need belief. Belief that what you've been carrying inside you is real. That your dreams aren't delusions, they're directions. That you weren't given this vision just to fantasize about it, but to realize it. You really have everything you need. You have today. You have this breath, this heartbeat, this fire in your chest that refuses to be extinguished. That's not random. That's purpose. Pounding on the walls of your comfort zone, begging to be let out. Before 2026, decide that you are done waiting, not because everything is perfect, but because you are done living in pause. There is no one coming to crown you ready, no spotlight about to turn on, no permission slip that makes this all less scary. There is only now. Now is the moment you stop waiting. Now is the moment you begin. So let's review. Audit your circle. Learn an unautomatable skill. Define your non-negotiables. Prioritize your health. Provide it and forgive and move forward. And stop waiting for permission. You don't get stronger by chance. You get stronger by choice. 2026 is coming. The question is, who will you be when it gets here? Let's find out.